Today we're going to show you how to retarget from one character to another, making use of the akeytsu toolset. For the purpose of this tutorial video, we are going to use two test models that we include in our software package. First, we are going to load our Elise character. As you can see, it is available with all her animations, and we're going to load into the scene another test character called the Sky Surfer. As you can see, his animations play kind of funny. For now, when importing an akeytsu onto an existing scene, akeytsu doesn't let you choose if you want to force the frame rate of the scene onto the imported file, or if you want to force the frame rate of the imported file onto the scene you're loading it into. In order to work around that problem, we are going to make sure that the two scenes match so that they can be easily imported into one another. So we're going to go and fetch the Sky Surfer file available in this location. And we are going to go onto the time bar preferences and make sure that the two match each other. In this case, we are going to bump up the scene frame rate of the Sky Surfer to 60. As you'll see, it has preserved all the animations, and we can now save that file, close it, and import it onto the Elise scene file. And now both animations play at correct speed. Now, in order to prepare these two characters for retargeting, you can see that their character nodes are available onto the tree. You can drag and drop the character nodes in order to make sure that you separate the two characters. You'll see that all the animations are available in the anim bank. And the goal of this tutorial will be to transfer the animations of one character to another and the other way around. As you can see, both characters are kind of snapped to the grid already. They have their feet positioned at the same level. So we won't have to fine-tune that, but please make sure that when you retarget, both characters have been correctly snapped to grid. Now we are going to switch over to our rigging window by using the tab key. And here you can see that the two bind poses of our characters don't match. So our first task will be to make sure that we create an additional reference pose for both characters. That will be a T-pose in that case. We could try to eyeball a reference pose and try to go in A pose, but the T-pose, as you'll see, is a much safer way to obtain something that will make sure retargeting is efficient. In order to achieve these T-poses, we are going to add IK controllers on the end chain of the spline for both characters. Now I'm going to start with Elise, plant one of her feet, make sure that I straighten up her leg by moving up the pelvis joint. I will then use the IK controller in FK mode to straighten up the spline. Don't worry about the other half of the character because all the changes that we are doing will be eventually mirrored thanks to our mirroring function available in the transform dialog. Next, I'm going to take care of her arm, making good use of move and rotate controls available to make sure that I straighten up everything. Once all this is done, I will select half my character in the picker, make sure that you select the right side, and then mirror everything onto the other side through the mirroring button available in the transform dialog. I will also hide away Elise Saber because we won't make use of it in this retargeting tutorial since there are nothing to retarget onto the Sky Surfer. I will then proceed to basically perform the same operations onto the Sky Surfer. So I will again make sure that we plant one of the foot to ground and then straighten up the leg. In order to compare both legs, I can also mirror that and see and review what I have right now. As you can see, the rotation angle for the knees are not quite similar. I can make use of numpad 6 to display my pivots. And here I'm going to make use of the pole vector control that I have available by clicking on my ball of foot, which is where the reverse foot is placed. Now I have my knee correctly oriented. I will then proceed on to straighten up the spline, again making use of the akeytsu control that I've added to the head. Then again, aligning and straightening up the arm. Here is a nice trick that you can use for the palm. You can use right click to do a compensated rotation, which will make sure that you perfectly align palm and fingers, and then you can use a standard rotation. Now that I'm done, here again, I'm selecting half my character and then mirroring everything onto the other side. Here you can see that the character tends to lean forward, so I'm going to adjust that by making use of the pelvis joint. To achieve a T-pose that will be perfectly similar. Now both characters are in the same pose, in paint and check mode. I'm going to add a reference pose by making use of the button in the character bank dialog. And now I'm creating two new reference poses that we can use to retarget from one character to another. Here again, if I compare the two initial bind poses, they are kind of close, but not enough. Here we have something that's perfectly matched. Now I can switch back to the animation tab. Here I will make sure that I convert my animation to fit my reference pose. So what will happen is that akeytsu will offset everything to that new reference pose. And you can see here that all the animations are preserved. Now I'm going to start the retargeting process. Here I have a prompt that instructs me that I make sure that the ref pose is matched, which we've done previously. And so we are going to finally start and make sure that we match joints from one character, from the source character to the target character. So in this case, the source character is going to be the Sky Surfer, and we are going to transfer everything over onto Elise. So akeytsu will try to auto-detect the joints that have similar names, but some of it will have to be done manually. You need to make sure that if you have a different number of phalanx joints, that you are correctly matching the ones in existence. When you are manually of course associating a stock joint to another source joint, we'll try and make sure that the other side will be automatically associated as well. So for example, here I've added foot R, foot L will automatically be placed. I'm also matching the IK joints. And now I can finally retarget my Sky Surfer animations onto Elise. And you can see here that we have an idle animation that matches. So of course some joints had to be left aside, especially the ones for Elise hair, but this has worked as intended. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing, but just transferring Elise animation onto Sky Surfer. You'll see that a dedicated folder available in the anim bank. So here you have all the animation retargeting from the Sky Surfer. And here you can see that now we have the sky surfer that can walk just like it is, even though the walk is kind of feminine. And the idle pose just as well. Of course, it's perfectly normal that some of the joints that we had in the source character were not matched to anything for the target character. It can happen that we have some elements that have no equivalent between source and target characters. So in the example of the Sky Surfer, you'll see here that his clothes remain unanimated. That's because Elise has nothing in the way of clothes, and so there's no source data that we can transfer onto the Sky Surfer. If I take it the other way around, you'll notice, of course, that all the source data from Elise dreadlocks could not be matched to anything on the Sky Surfer because this model has no hair, and so it's perfectly normal to leave some of these joints aside. Also, one thing to mention is that as of now, akeytsu doesn't let you retarget the lens shape controller from one character to another, but a very cool thing that you'll notice is that all the layers that are used to create one animation are transferred onto the source character. So not only do you have all the animation clips conveniently placed in a specific folder in the animation bank, but you'll also have access to all the layers that were used to build the source animation. So if you'd like to then further tweak this animation and maybe change the opacity of these layers because they include some secondary actions that should not be as pronounced on another character, that's something that's totally up to you, and that can be adjusted. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I think that by watching this video, you should now be able to retarget from one character to the other. As a bonus, we are now going to show you that the same process can be used to retarget a BVH mocap file onto a character that you would have previously imported into akeytsu. So in order to illustrate that new use case, we are going to load our Elise test character and attempt to retarget a BVH mocap file onto it. First, we are going to load the scene of Elise and then import the mocap asset in it. In the case that the two files have different frame rate, akeytsu will let you choose whether you want to preserve the frame rate of the existing scene or if you want to force the frame rate from the imported file onto the scene. Let's say that when you've motion captured, you've usually made sure that this was done at the right frame rate. So in this example, we are going to force the frame rate of the mocap asset onto the scene. akeytsu will automatically recalculate the existing animations and make sure they are preserved. You can see that a new character node has appeared in the tree, and that this character node has successfully been imported and contains the BVH source animation. So now our task will be to retarget that BVH animation onto our Elise character. If I switch over to the rigging tab by making use of the tab key, I can see that there are a few things that I need to prepare my retargeting. In this case, the BVH character node, which is the hip joint, was placed at the origin of our 3D space. So I'm going to have to make sure that both skeletons are leveled up the same way. So in order to do so, I'm going to change my viewport display for a side view, and I'm going to display both skeletons and make sure that I correctly snap the skeleton of the BVH asset at the same level than my Elise character. And then I'm going to lift up that skeleton so that the foot joint is placed at the same level. Now we're going to have to make sure that Ely's reference pose actually matches the one for the BVH file. A standard way to proceed mocap assets is to use a standard T-pose. So we are going to make sure that Ely's reference pose actually matches it. So now we're going to switch over to the Ely's character node, and the first thing that you'll do is that you will delete the reference pose in existence, which you can do from the character bank window by making use of that delete button. Then we are going to go into bind pose and add an IK control, just as we've done for the general case, and this will be used to straighten up again the spline. Now we're going to switch over to paint and check and create a T-pose from there that we are going to then set as reference pose for Ely's character. When lifting up the IK joint, then I will basically proceed on to perform the same operations that were actually done in the previous example, where I was retargeting from the Ely's character to the Sky Surfer. So here we're going to speed up the video to show you only most important parts. Again, after we've tweaked the skeleton, we will mirror everything onto the other side by making use of the selection shortcut in the picker and mirror everything through the transform dialog. Then we'll switch over to the animation tab and make sure that we convert all the existing animations of Ely's to that new reference pose, so that akeytsu automatically offsets all these animations and preserve them. So now you'll see that we have all the animations preserved and adapted to the new reference pose. Next, we are going to go and match the joints that can be from the source character, which in this instance is the actual BVH mocap file. So we're going to drag and drop the joints that we can from the stock joints onto the target skeleton. Here again, this has been largely explained in the general case, so we are going to speed up the video. So in the case of fingers, you should pay extreme attention to how you match joints from source to target. In this case, we are going to look at how our BVH skeleton has been built, and you'll see that we actually have 5 joints, whereas Ely's only has 3 for fingers. You can see that the first joint actually won't be needed, and the 5th joint at the tip of each finger won't be needed either for Ely's. So in order to proceed quickly, we are going to right-click the joint of the first phalanx on the Ely's character, which will conveniently auto-select all phalanx joints, and we are going to drag and drop them into the target skeleton list. So again, right-clicking a joint in akeytsu allows you to not only select the parent joint, but all its children, and which can be convenient here. Once we have matched our skeletons, then we can safely retarget the BVH animation onto our character, and you can see that the results are as intended. You can also reverse source and target in the case that you want to actually transfer over some of the Ely's animation onto the BVH file, and in which case all the layers are preserved, just as mentioned in the general use case. This completes our tutorial for retargeting. I hope that the tutorial was instructive and that it will help you in your animation endeavors. Have a very great day. And thank you all on the behalf of the Nicaragua team for watching this tutorial. Bye bye!